Today we're rounding out Negroni week with a bang. We're taking things in a completely new direction. So whereas Negronis tend to be kind of bittersweet, botanical and fresh, we're going into a completely different spectrum of flavor, going for those rich, deep, intense and slightly smoky flavors. And technically this isn't a Negroni, it's a riff on a Negroni. So this is called the PALO SANTO BREW-LEVARDIER. We've got brand new flavors, we've got a little bit of coffee flavor in there as well, which is also optional. And today I'm going to share it with you, which I'm very excited about. So let's get on with it. So the PALO SANTO BREW-LEVARDIER. You guys probably know I like a good pun, but I also like a Boulevardier. And what is a Boulevardier, I hear you asking? Well, we've covered this in our Essential Cocktails video course, which I'll link at the end. But essentially a Boulevardier is where you switch out the gin from a Negroni, incorporate bourbon, and you get a little bit more kind of richness, more of that caramelly sweetness from the bourbon. You could also use rye, which works really nicely, which I'll talk about in a second. And this is then combined with Campari, sweet vermouth, tended to lean a little bit more towards the spirit base, so I like to go for a 2:1:1 ratio, whereas a classic Negroni tends to be 1 part gin, 1 part Campari, 1 part sweet vermouth. So slightly different drink, but what we're going to do today is build upon this, add layers of complexity, and a kind of depth of flavor you don't really get from a Boulevardier. So I really enjoy this. Palo Santo is a bit of a secret ingredient here, and it works really well. And what we're going to do is go all equal parts. So first of all, we've got our bourbon. I'm going with Buffalo Trace. For a split spirit base, I'm actually going to incorporate rye as well. And this brings a little bit more kind of spiciness, a little bit of that nice pepperiness to the drink, which works very well. And sticking with Campari, I usually go with Cocky Rico, which is a very nice vermouth. I'm a big fan. But for this one, we're going to move that out and bring an Antica formula, which has just a little bit more depth, a little bit more body. And as I say, this is really leaning into those kind of rich, almost smoky flavors. So that's a really good switch. And then we're going to incorporate a little bit of Cold Brew Concentrate. So this is a slightly darker roast coffee, which is a good thing in this drink. You want those kind of richer flavors, more kind of chocolate and toffee to time with our spirits, our bourbon and our rye. So these all work really nicely together. But then, as I said, our secret weapon, in order to bring them all into one really harmonious drink, is going to be this, which is Paragon Palo Santo Cordial. So Palo Santo, if you're not familiar, is also known as sacred wood, and it's often mistaken for frankincense or myrrh, which I didn't know. So from a flavor perspective, this is very complex, but it's a really kind of deep flavor. Primarily, it's got that woodiness, that kind of sappy, rich sweetness. Got a little bit of smoke in there, and almost a little bit of aniseed that I taste. And this is a very powerful ingredient. So unlike a lot of other cordials, which tend to be sweetened with just citric acid, this has a much more complex acidity, which balances out the sweetness. We've got citric, lactic, and also gluconic acid in there. And these three come together to bring an amazing acidity, which balance out that Palo Santo sappy sweetness. So this is going to be our last equal part ingredient. And then another optional ingredient, just like the coffee, although I do recommend the coffee, is going to be this, which I think is more of a seasoning than an ingredient. So I like to incorporate just a tiny bit of absinthe into the drink. And this is to tone with those kind of aniseed notes we find in the cordial. Not for everyone, it's very subtle in the drink, but I just find it really makes everything pop and harmonize really nicely. So let's build a drink. Very simple, we're gonna be stirring this down. As I said, equal parts. I'm going with 20 mils each, starting with our bourbon for those kind of subtle caramel notes. 20 mils again of rye, for those slightly more spicy notes, which complement the bourbon really nicely, and also the cordial. 20 mils of Campari, which any kind of variation of a Negroni, like a Boulevardier, really needs. 20 mils once again. And this is our primary bitter element. Very delicious. The same amount again of our Carpano Antica formula for those crunchy red fruit flavors. And then the Cold Brew Concentrate, which I do really recommend. I think it adds a really nice complementary flavor to both the cordial, that Palo Santo, and also in a lot of Negronis, I think coffee works really nicely. You can try this with coffee, try it without, see which you prefer, and I think you'll prefer it with, but don't let that put you off trying this drink. So if you do want to add the coffee element, which I do recommend, very simple to make. Just combine 1 part of ground, probably medium to dark roast coffee with 8 parts of cold water. You want to grind this a little bit finer than you would for a cafetiere, so not too coarse, but also not too fine. Give it a good shake to mix it all together. Leave that for around about 12 hours until that flavor is really infused, and then pass that through a paper filter. You can also drink this on its own. It's a really good cold brew recipe, although it's quite strong, so you might want to bring that down with a little bit of ice. And then the next ingredient is our magic Paragon Cordial. Once again, 20 mils. And this has got acidity, sweetness, and those amazing smoky, woody, deep flavors, which are really inherent in this drink. And then finally, very much optional, and I don't like absinthe as a rule, but as an ingredient, like a seasoning, it can work really well. Just be very, very gentle with it. I'm gonna go 1 gram, and this will bring out that aniseed flavor. Any more than a gram and you really start to taste it, it does overpower the drink. And a gram seems kind of trivial, but if you tried absinthe, you know how intense it is, how potent it is, and I think that's gonna be plenty. So now we're ready to stir the drink down. You could just stir it down and it'd be a great drink. I'd recommend doing so if you don't have all these extravagant tools, but a little bit of extravagance can go a long way. I think it looks good. I think it really adds to the theatre and the aroma of the drink. So we're gonna do it today and I'll show you how. So here we have our smoking gun, or a smoking prawn, which I've heard it called. And this is an amazing tool. Gives that really nice smoky aroma and visual to cocktails. Can be really powerful. And we're gonna be smoking oak chips today. So this says do not consume, as if you're gonna eat oak chips. Obviously don't. And you just wanna load up the little receptacle with our chips, ready to be smoked. So you could use different woods, probably other stuff, I don't know, but tea maybe, but wood definitely works. This is actually designed for smoking, so I do recommend this. And then all we're gonna do, grab our lighter. So this is ready to go. Prep our orange, just so that's ready to go, and we can move nice and quickly. So I just want a little orange coin for the drink. Our mise en place is now in place, and we can stir down the cocktail. So we're gonna serve this over ice, so you don't need to go too heavy on the dilution. Just get it really nice and cold, get the ingredients mixed together. And technically you could also shake this drink because we've got the cordial in there, which also has the kind of acidity. But I want this to be nice and silky. I don't want it to be kind of shaken up and foamy. It'd be a very different drink if you did that. And I think this just works very well. So quick stir like that. You can check your dilution. It can be a little bit under diluted at this stage because we're gonna add the clear ice later. And then we're gonna strain this over that big block of clear ice from Plymouth Ice Company. So now we just wanna flame our orange peel over the drink, which gives that really nice aroma. A little bit zesty, a little bit smoky. The coin can live on top. And then this gets served in our little cool cloche. So in with the cocktail, on with the lid, put your little smoking prawn through the little hole. Then we can light this just to get the smoke filling up that cloche. And as you do this, it obviously looks very cool. The drink just takes on a little bit of smoky aroma. It's not too overpowering. Ideally, you don't really want any leakage. These don't fit quite perfectly, but it's a cool looking presentation. It does really impact the aroma, the theatre of our Palo Santo BREW-LEVARDIER. So I think that's quite enough of that. Remove the smoking gun. Leave this for a little bit of time until you get enough smokiness in the drink. And when you're ready, you can reveal the very cool Palo Santo BREW-LEVARDIER. Are you ready? All right, cheers everyone. A very cool looking drink, aromatically incredible. Let's taste. So it does very loosely remind me of a Negroni. The Campari, the sweet vermouth obviously really ring true to a Negroni, but there's just so much more depth of flavor. I think more character, definitely more kind of roundness, woodiness, smokiness, and actually even just a single gram of your absinthe does make a big difference. So that Palo Santo cordial's made the drink perfectly balanced. It's not made it too sweet or too sour. I think it's a really good kind of balance between the two. Lovely texture, very clean. A little bit of coffee coming through as well without overpowering. And it all just comes together, I think, very nicely. So Palo Santo to me is a very exciting ingredient, one that I've only just started experimenting with, and there's so many more things I think you could do with it. So make sure you experiment with it. Check out the link in the description below. You can also pick up Paragon Vetiver cordial, which I made a drink with just here. Labdanum cordial, which I made a drink with just here. And the full range is very, very kind of versatile, very curious and interesting, so I think you'll have a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed playing with them as well. So big thanks to Paragon for sponsoring these videos. Check out the link in the description below. Thanks to you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Also, if you've enjoyed this and you like coffee and cocktails, make sure you subscribe. helps the channel, helps you see more and more coffee and cocktail videos, and I hope you enjoy them. So enjoy this, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.